Well, hello, this is Deborah Johnson with you today. I'm talking to those who are at mid-career, half-time of life, men and women who are facing changes, really planning their next chapter. And in today's episode, we are diving into something that we all wrestle with, imperfection. And here's the truth. It's perfectly okay to be imperfect, perfectly imperfect, in fact. And there's such freedom in that phrase. When we absolutely aim to show up prepared, polished, and doing our best, well, life has a way of tossing in surprises, missteps, and really kind of some messy moments. And guess what? It's not failure. It's just real life. And no matter how many planners you buy or how many inspirational quotes you tape to your mirror, well, something's always just slightly off, and that's okay. So today, let's laugh a little, let's learn a lot, and celebrate the freedom that comes with embracing the messy middle. So stay tuned.
This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media and HalftimeSuccess.com, offering resources and insights for those at mid-career or the halftime of life. Explore our diverse categories, including courses, coaching, health, music, software, and travel. We're here to help you make this stage of life your best ever. So get our new articles, downloads, and podcasts by signing up for weekly updates at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
Apps like Instagram and TikTok, well, they are filled with picture perfect, flawlessly organized lives. And truthfully, well, I'm relieved that I didn't have access to those kinds of images when raising three boys. I would have either spiraled into deep discouragement or burned out trying to keep up with my type A personality. And I still remember visiting a friend whose only child always looked like he had just stepped out of a detergent commercial. There was not a speck of dirt on him. And her house, it was immaculate. It's beautiful. And meanwhile, mine looked like a windstorm had blown through, leaving a fine layer of dust on every surface and dirty socks artfully scattered like they were a part of the decor. Like, I really tried to keep up. I did. But I refused to rob my boys of the joy of wrestling matches on the living room carpet or overreact when their muddy shoes made a surprise appearance inside. And surely it was exasperating at times, but they just loved to play in the dirt, and sometimes they just forgot. And life was messy, but it was beautifully, boyishly, wonderfully messy. And it reminds me how it's perfectly okay to be imperfect. Perfectly imperfect. That's our topic today. And there's freedom in that phrase. And we strive to be accurate and prepared with our very best. But there will always be certain elements out of our control. And this has happened to me with some tech issues on music and speaking engagements. It was stressful. But I couldn't stress about them very long. I had to get through them and move on and even learn from them. And today we talk about how imperfections, they tell a story and how they're used even by the famous, and the myth of having it all together and how performance is really overrated. And we're going to talk about gemstones, a mole, and more. So let's talk about the gemstone lesson, why imperfections shine. Well, opals are literally formed through a messy process. Water seeps into cracks in rocks, and over time, it deposits silica. And unlike clear-cut gems, opals are loved because of their unpredictable, swirling colors, and no two opals are alike. Well, I purchased an opal ring on one of our camping trips growing up, and the stone would change colors as I turned it in my hand with its iridescent mother of pearl quality, and I loved wearing it. And that play of color resulted from the imperfections. of the opal's structure. And so instead of just perfection, opals, they offer mystery, depth, and uniqueness, just like real life. Their flaws make them mesmerizing. And another gem that's unusually popular is a salt and pepper diamond. And even though I've never owned this type of diamond filled with black and white inclusions and specks, well, they're popular because they're unique. They have scars. And usually imperfections, they tell a story. And we're driven to those stories because the stories really just tell us about life. Well, let's move on to the imperfect mole of the famous. Oh, wow. Mole? Well, today is the era of Botox, Juvederm, and medical lifts and tucks and trying to keep the inevitable aging of our bodies from happening too fast. Well, I will give you a big clue here. Aging will keep happening. And I find nothing wrong with using some of these methods to slow down the inevitable, but it's also okay to show a few lines of wisdom. Well, we've earned them. I can't be afraid to get in front of a video camera, to get in front of a camera, just because I'm gracefully growing older, as I say. Well, my beautiful mother, who always dressed nicely and put on makeup most every day, well, she focused more on instilling life skills and personal habits than just holding back the passing of time. And her beauty always shone through. Well, I'd walk in early in the morning and in her room, and she was either exercising or she was spending time with a brief devotional just in the quiet of her bedroom. She was working on the inner beauty. And the actress Marilyn Monroe famously embraced her small facial mole just above her lip. And this, I remember because of seeing this, in my mom's era, that imperfection became one of her most iconic features and even sparked a trend with many women, including friends of my mom, using eyeliner to just draw on their own little beauty mark. Imperfection is beauty, and madness is genius. It's better to be absolutely ridiculous than absolutely boring. That was a quote by Marilyn Monroe. Imperfection is beauty. Madness is genius. And it's better to be absolutely ridiculous than absolutely boring. Wow, we needed to repeat that. Interesting. She just owned that mole. And by the time we hit our 40s and 50s, well, many of us have built families and careers and communities, and we've also collected our fair share of disappointments and unmet expectations. We often look in the mirror and we wonder, well, is this it? Did I miss something? Or worse, did I mess it all up? But here's the truth. Perfection was never the goal. Growth, wisdom, and authenticity were. And Marilyn Monroe, she decided to be authentic, and she started a trend. So let's move on. The myth of having it all together. The myth of having it all together is one of the most persistent illusions that we chase, especially in midlife and the halftime of life. From the outside, well, it can look like everyone else has their act together. Thriving careers, beautifully organized homes, Pinterest-worthy family dinners, and emotionally balanced relationships. But more often than not, that polished exterior is hiding a whole lot of chaos, self-doubt, and takeout containers just outside the camera frame. And it reminds me of the friend who invited us to dinner. Her house was incredibly clean. But when she opened up the oven, oh, you know what I'm going to say. It was packed with dirty dishes from the week before. Actually made me feel better. Now, the pressure to keep up this image of perfection can just be exhausting and totally unrealistic. Life doesn't come with a tidy bow or a how-to manual. Well, it's full of messy moments, unexpected detours, seasons where the laundry just never ends and the to-do list just mocks you. And comparison is one of the quickest ways to rob ourselves of joy and contentment. And so when we constantly measure our lives against someone else's highlight reel, well, we end up feeling less than, like we're behind, we're broken, or we're just not enough. And this is especially sneaky when we face our own life changes, when social media feeds us these curated snapshots of all of these other people's successes, vacations, and seemingly perfect families. Well, I'll never forget the feeling that I got from one of our neighbors where she talked endlessly of her kids' accomplishments. And meanwhile, well, I was prodding our son to at least turn in his history homework. You can identify with that feeling, I'm sure. But a comparison just rarely accounts for the full story. It overlooks the challenges that others face behind the scenes and minimizes the value of our own unique journey. And when we get caught up in the trap of comparing, well, we forget that our pace, our purpose, and our path are designed specifically for us. We are unique, and that's where the real beauty lies. It's in the journey. So let's touch on a last point here of performance is overrated. For those who are maybe Gen Xers and those navigating the midpoint of life, officially after the age of 40, 45, it's time to let go of the illusion of having it all together. It isn't a goal. Well, it's a performance. And frankly, it's overrated. The more honest we are about the cracks in our lives, the more that we create space for real connection, for joy and growth. Embracing imperfection doesn't mean giving up our goals or self-discipline. It just means accepting that wholeness, being fully human within all our dents, our detours, and our wisdom, it's far more powerful than maintaining this flawless image. Wholeness brings freedom, and perfection demands performance. And if you're tired of the show, well, you're not alone. Now, I personally have performed a lot of shows, mostly in music, but when walking on a stage, even though I aim to be authentic, there's still a persona and a performance. There's a script. Keeping up that performance in all areas of life, including our businesses, our families, and our relationships, well, it's a lot of pressure. What truly sustains and empowers us, especially in the second half of life, is wholeness, the ability to embrace all parts of ourselves, the strong and the struggling and the growing. It gives us the freedom to let go of those unrealistic expectations and the burden of constant self-editing. And as we age and accumulate wisdom, hopefully, we begin to understand that our value doesn't lie in flawlessness, but in depth and character and in the courage to keep evolving and growing. And when we choose wholeness over perfection and performance, we find peace, we find purpose, resilience, and the power to connect more meaningfully with others and with ourselves. And that's the kind that leaves a legacy and leaves true satisfaction. So let me leave you with just a couple thoughts here to really apply this. First, we talked about those imperfections that tell a story. So how do we apply this? Embrace your scars and your stumbles, just like those gemstones. Well, they're beautiful, and the proof that you have lived, you have grown, and you have overcome. Embrace those. So imperfections of the famous, just like that mole, if icons can shine through those flaws, so can you. Perfection is not a prerequisite for impact or for true beauty. Own who you are and your uniqueness. Number 3, the myth of having it all together. Drop the act and breathe. No one has it all figured out. And pretending is exhausting. Be careful about that comparison trap. And if you have dishes in your oven, hopefully I will be the last to criticize dirty dishes, at least. And how performance is overrated. living for applause and accolades, that will wear you out. It's exhausting. Live for purpose instead, and contentment and courage will follow. And enjoy the journey. Let go of polish. Embrace the sparkle that comes from being perfectly, beautifully imperfect. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy every single episode. We have at least once a week. Sometimes we have a couple coming out. I have bonus episodes. I have a new book coming out. So make sure you get on a new newsletter. It comes out every single week. It comes actually midweek and on the weekend. So you get all of our current articles, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. And that you share this podcast. I hope you enjoyed, that you applied some of the things, you look at the article and really apply some of these principles today. And my hope for you is that you truly own who you are, the beauty that you are, imperfectly imperfect. We are all that. And that you decide to really take that next chapter of your life seriously, because it's just the very best ever. Deborah Johnson, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next time. So bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.